todos, I am Rodolfo Ramos, Bradesco BBVA's Mexico strategist, and welcome to This What's Fun in Mexico, our bi-weekly video product to give you our latest views. So today we're back in the middle of Central Park, as you can see, in a beautiful spring weather day, so taking advantage of the changing seasons here. And really, I couldn't be more excited about the timing of this bi-weekly video with yesterday's Liberation Day, Reciprocal Day tariff announcement. So we have a lot of ground to cover, but today we're going to be focusing solely on these reciprocal tariffs news. Before I do get into the content, I'd just like to take one last opportunity here to compel you to support yours truly and the rest of our team, Juan Ponce on the equity strategy and Bernardo Kaiserman from our macro team, to support us in the Extel II survey. We would very much appreciate your vote on the Mexico and on the equity strategy categories. So kicking off here with our content that we have here for you today, we're going to be covering the three main takeaways from yesterday's announcement, executive order. Secondly, we're going to be covering what are the next steps for Mexico. And third, we're going to be talking about some of our views on the market side. So kicking off here with the three main points of yesterday's executive order for Mexico, the first and foremost is, of course, that Mexico was excluded from these new tariffs. This was, of course, a part of the very successful strategy that was dealt by President Claudia Sheinbaum and her team. So kudos to all of her team for bringing these negotiations forward. So this is the first and foremost, the most important one. Second is that the previous tariff announcements are unaffected by this executive order. We are still paying 25% drug tariff, as we have dubbed it, on non-USMCA compliant goods. We estimate that this impacts about 15% of Mexican exports to the US. Secondly, we have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, and we believe it impacts us about 5% of Mexican exports to the US. And finally, we have a 25% tariffs on the automotive exports. This is a much more nuanced tariff because it applies on non-USMCA compliant goods, but also on USMCA, but with a little bit of a twist. Right now, the US is differentiated between US content and non-US content. So this would apply to the 60% non-US content that is currently embedded in Mexican exports, basically Mexican and Canadian input and content. So it's a much more watered down tariff than you would see headline. And this is further differentiated by the fact that auto parts are currently not being levied a 25% tariff. This is going to be reviewed beginning of May per the previous order. So these are the three items that are still in effect and are not impacted by yesterday's announcement. And thirdly, finally, the last thing that really caught our attention is that the U.S. has laid out basically an exit ramp for all these tariffs to go out. Basically, it specifically says that when these three measures are suspended or terminated, then all of the non-USMCA compliant exports are going to go towards a lower 12% tariffs from the current 25% tariff. So again, we believe that the U.S. here is encouraging all of the trade that happens between the U.S. and Mexico to basically be USMCA compliant. So this was a very important measure that was announced yesterday, and we believe that paves the way for an eventual negotiation on these fronts if Mexico continues cooperating as it has been already. So these are the main 3 points that caught our attention from yesterday's executive order. Now, moving on to the second item that we wanted to discuss, what are the next steps? We do believe, as we have mentioned to many of you whom we've met with in person, is that we do believe that everything is going to boil down to the USMCA review, which we arguably has already begun. We do believe that the U.S. will continue to push for further integration and basically sidelining China in this particular case, whether it's through investments, whether it's through mirroring tariffs that the U.S. has. Mexico has been. We have heard of Mexico working on a regulator that will be vetting investments going into strategic sectors, for example. So we believe that there is a lot to be done on that front. And the good news for us is that the Mexican negotiators have been more than willing to comply and align themselves with the U.S. demands and views. So I think we have a complete alignment of interests here, and it's very encouraging to see this willingness from the Mexican side. We do believe that this review is going to take place sooner than the official timeline suggests. We will see how much pain the administration is willing to take, the U.S. administration is willing to take on this angst about tariffs, but it's clear that Mexico stands on a much, much better relative position to the rest of the world. And we see it, no? So transitioning a little bit here towards our market views, it has been clear the reaction from the Mexico side on the currency, for example. We breached today the 20 peso threshold. So this was, continues to highlight that Mexico will continue to integrate with the U.S. And we do believe that 5 years from now, we're probably going to be looking back and seeing the share of Mexico that Mexico has of the U.S. Import market continue to grow. All of this situation is very well positioned for nearshoring to have the second leg up on growth. We continue to see companies in a wait and see mode, but in our opinion, this signals this yesterday's order. It really signals that the U.S. is willing to continue to work within the USMCA framework and a trade understanding with Mexico. So this is great news for equity investors in Mexico. We have continued to add more risk to our portfolio that is levered on nearshoring, and we have included in our portfolio developers now, for example, that benefit from tighter markets in the northern border, which has been a main beneficiary from nearshoring. So it has been a very fluid and dynamic topic, to say the least, but we will be sure to keep you posted on the recent developments. We'll include all of the reports on the links below, let us help you stay on top of all the news flow on Mexico, and have a great rest of the week, everybody. Take care. Ciao, amigos.